Dr. Edwards, let me ask you the question. If I start pulling water out of the Flint River and I put it through...
It's the national outrage now playing in Washington. The Flint Water Department pumping out poison. The governor asleep at the wheel, or worse. State and federal officials knew, but did nothing. Those parts we know. Here's the part we don't. Where are the so-called experts hired to make the water safe? Let's back up and explain how we arrive at this door. Flint, a broke town in a hardscrabble county, grows tired of paying extortionate rates to the Detroit Water Department, a department riddled with its own corruption. So regional officials designed their own pipeline from Lake Huron, parallel to Detroit's, in an attempt to cut Detroit out of the picture. Will this actually save money? That's still being debated. But why spend hundreds of millions of borrowed dollars you don't have? Lots of jobs for one thing, and lots of contracts. Look at all of it. Jeff Wright, the Genesee County Drain Commissioner, is the driving force behind the new water project known as the Karagandhi, or the KWA.
There's a lot of power and a lot of money in that, right? You pushed it forward. A lot of your contributors have contracts with that. Is this also a patronage deal?
I would say that anybody that's contributed to me has also contributed to Detroit. I cannot control who the contractors are because we do all competitive bidding, period.
Some of those contractors, though, have been caught with their fingers in the Detroit cookie jar, involved in scandals like the unfinished county jail and the Kwame Kilpatrick Water Department. And another big donor to the Drain Commissioner is a central player in the Flint water crisis. Some background. Back in 2013, state-appointed emergency manager Ed Kurtz decided Flint could save money if it quit Detroit's water and joined the new pipeline. Kurtz and Wright, the Drain Commissioner, issued a joint statement back then saying there'd be, quote, no looking back. But where would Flint now get its water until the pipeline was ready? Kurtz decided on the Flint River. Serving people river water was supposed to save Flint more than $2 million a year. But the savings weren't passed on to the customer. In fact, people's water bills never went down. Instead, that $2 million was supposed to be funneled back into Flint's old treatment plant for upgrades. The problem here? The necessary upgrades weren't made. And you know what happened.
Really?
If it all sounds like a sick science experiment to save a couple bucks, it was, says Scott Kincaid, a Flint City councilman.
You know, it's just a travesty for our community that they would allow for the system to be so corrosive that it would put lead in the water and our residents and children would drink it.
So who was the expert hired to help switch over to the Flint River? Kurtz picked a contributor of the Drain Commissioners, Land Engineering, based in Houston, with the storefront office in Flint.
We never got consulted and we never seen any bids or evaluations of any other companies. It was a contract with Land and it was done by the emergency manager, and it's a failure of our system.
Though the company was hired for its so-called expertise, carbon filters and corrosion controls weren't put into place when the river started flowing from the taps. Immediately, residents began to complain that the water was making them sick. E. coli, then methane, now the lead. Local politicians who had rubber-stamped the deal back then now feel betrayed.
Looking back, what kind of grade you give them?
It's probably about a D when you look at the personnel. They didn't have the training, the licenses that should have been in place. They met minimal standards, but so often we're all now looking back at this minimal, and that's what left our community unprotected
It was up to land, it was up to the DEQ, it was up to the governor and the treasurer's office to make sure that the water was safe to drink, and they all failed us.
We made multiple calls to land engineering. The company declined to answer our questions. We stopped by their local offices several times.
Wow. Looks abandoned. No lights, no people. Nobody's been watering the plants.
We called Kurtz. We stopped by his house. We're told he's in Florida.
Starting to see a pattern.
After all this, Flint continues to employ land engineering. Its contract, which began at $170,000, has now ballooned to nearly $4 million. In fact, the company has recently been awarded another $900,000 to address the lead debacle. Flint's mayor seems unaware of it.
Hi, Mayor. Are you happy with the work they've done, and why did they get that $1 million extension?
The firm that was...
That's the engineering firm that's in charge of the plant to bring it up to speed, Lockwood, Andrews, and Newman.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to comment on that right now because we're still looking at some of that. And I really want to get some more information before I, comment on that one.
Flint is back to drinking Detroit's water in the short term. But sometime later this year, the pipeline from Lake Huron will be completed and raw water will once again flow into the Flint treatment plant. The $1 million question is this: can we trust what flows out?
You're drinking bottled water.
Aquafina, Detroit's best.
I dare you.
That's no problem at all. This is DWSD water.
That was
Good stuff.
I don't even believe you drank it.
It's cold. It's good stuff, Charlie.